I'd like to call to order the Village Council meeting for the Village of Beverly Hills for September 16th, 2025. Ms. Brown, if you can please take roll.
Ms. Kescometti?
Here.
Mr. Mercer?
Present.
Mr. O'Gorman? Mr. Booth? Mr. Drummond?
Here.
Mr. George? Ms. Rajusco?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you.
Mr. Drummond, at this time, I'd like to move to excuse council members Abood, O'Gorman, and Council President George from their absences tonight.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor from Ms. Kesmeny. Do I have a second?
Support.
Thank you, Mr. Drusko. Ms. Brown, if you, or wait, we can just aye vote it, right?
Motion.
Yes.
All in favor to excuse those council members, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, we find them excused. If I can ask everyone to join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, do I have any amendments to tonight's agenda or a motion to approve the agenda?
Mr. Drummond, if I may, I would like to move consent agenda G to business agenda item C. Adopt the 2026 Village Council meeting schedule.
Support.
Okay, I have a motion and support. Ms. Brown, if you could please take roll. Actually, I'm sorry, we can just do the votes on that, right, Ripple?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, all in favor to move item G and make it business agenda C, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, we have an amended agenda. Do I have anyone who would like to approve that?
Mr. Drummond, at this time, I'd like to move that we approve the agenda as amended.
Support.
And I have support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, we have an agenda. Do we have any community announcements this evening from anyone in the community? Okay, seeing none, we can move on to public comments. We do have an item on our business agenda tonight for the Northbrook Presbyterian Church, and I know a lot of you are most likely here to voice comments about the first reading of the animal ordinance. And I'm just going to ask, with respect to the Northbrook Presbyterian Church's time here, because they do have a person here for tonight's item, if I can ask that you hold comments for the animal ordinance until we get down to that item in the agenda tonight, and I promise we'll open comments in that agenda item. So seeing that, do I have any public comments tonight? Sure, go ahead. Just please come up to the podium, state your name and the street.
Alan Studi, Dunblane Avenue. My question really to council is the village going to do anything about the deer overpopulation in the village? I have heard multiple times when I stop in the office and ask at the front desk if anything's going to be done. They tell me that it's being discussed, but I don't see any great evidence of that. And I also was frequently told that the village was going to wait and see what the surrounding communities are doing. And I would venture to say that the wait and see mode is over because Farmington Hills has taken action or plans to. Farmington plans to take action, and I believe the city of Southfield is also doing that. So my question to the village is, are we going to get on board and do something? I've had 9 deer in my backyard. There is fresh deer scat in my yard continuously. It needs to be dealt with. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Do I have any other public comments tonight? Okay. Seeing none, we can move on to the consent agenda. Item A on the consent agenda is to approve the minutes of the regular council meeting held September 2nd, 2025. Item B is to approve the minutes of closed session council meeting held September 2nd, 2025. Item C, to review and file bills recapped as of Monday, September 8th, 2025. Item D, proclamation recognizing Constitution Week. Item E, approve purchase of fire apparatus tires. Item F, award 2026 calendar project to Indiana Printing and Publishing Company. We are skipping item G, that is now a business agenda item. And then item H, to approve change to the non-union retirement plan.
Mr. Drummond, at this time, be it resolved that the Village Council of the Village of Beverly Hills approve the consent agenda as read.
Support.
Ms. Brown, can you please take roll?
Mr. Mercer?
Yes.
Mr. Drummond?
Yes.
Ms. Rojusco?
Yes.
Castanetti?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. On to our business agenda. First item is the special land use request from Northbrook Presbyterian Church. Mr. Rothy, if you could please read us in.
Yes, thank you, everyone, and good evening. The first item of business is the consideration of granting a special land use permit for Northbrook Presbyterian Church for an accessory structure, basically demolishing the existing garage on the property and building a new one, slightly larger, to contain their church van. I want to just speak a little bit on the process of how we got here. Under our zoning ordinance, for a church to have an accessory structure, there is two approvals that need to be obtained. One of those is special land use, which is what we are considering this evening. I want to be clear that the special land use is a more subjective approval process. It determines whether or not a use is appropriate for a zoning district. It is not the technical site plan review. So it's separate from that. And how it works is the Planning Commission, there are 11 standards for special land uses in our zoning ordinance. You have the report from Safe Built and their analysis of those standards, both for site plan and special land use, but there are 11 standards for special land uses. His analysis is presented for you. The Planning Commission considered these standards and recommended that the Village Council approve the special land use permit. This is different from the second part that Northbrook had to do, which was to have a site plan. So the site plan review process is the same zoning ordinance, different section, different set of approval standards. It's more of a technical review. It's not subjective like a special land use grant is. And in our case, the Planning Commission has final authority on approval of site plans. So the Planning Commission determined that those standards for the site plan were met and approved it. And then again, they don't have final say on special land use, but they do consider and review the special land use, and they did, and they unanimously voted to recommend that the Village Council approve, again, the special land use for the project, not the site plan. There is a distinction. I just wanted that to be clear. We do have a gentleman from Northbrook. If there are questions, we also, Ms. Steck's been feeling under the weather the last few days, but she is here on Zoom should somebody have a more detailed question for her as well. So I'll turn it over to the council for deliberation.
Thank you. If I could ask the petitioner, please come up to state your name and address, and maybe just tell us a little bit about why we should be considering this special land use request.
Yeah, appreciate your time. My name is Todd Dolan. I represent Northbrook Presbyterian. I head up their Building and Grounds Committee. The reason for our garage, we have, of course, plenty of land, is for storage and also to store our van, which we currently cannot store. So we drew up a new garage. The intent is to demolish the old one when the new garage is built. But really, it's for one purpose, to store the current tables and chairs and more church equipment, and also be able to store our church van. Any particular questions that anyone has that I could help answer?
I can open up to council if you guys have any questions for the petitioner while he's at the podium.
I don't. Thank you, Mr. Drummond.
No, I found it pretty straightforward. I take the advice of our planning commission, so I have nothing. Nobody else does. I'll offer a resolution. Good? Okay. So be it resolved that the Village Council approves a special land use request by Northbrook Presbyterian Church located at 22055 West 14 Mile Road. The PC case is 25-08-01, with the condition that any concerns by the fire marshal, building, and engineering reviews are addressed.
Support.
I have a motion and support. Ms. Brown, can you please take roll?
Mr. Drummond?
Yes.
Ms. Rutschusco,
Yes.
Ms. Cascometti.
Yes.
Mr. Mercer.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you.
Just one comment if I could make, I want to
Yeah, you need to step to the
Have to come
podium.
up to the podium, sorry. Everything's recorded.
Sorry about that. Just one comment. I want to thank Susie for her professionalism and help navigating me through your process that made it much more user-friendly than it otherwise would have been. She's been an asset for me through this process.
Thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. You're welcome to stay, or if you have some other pressing church business to attend to, you're welcome to it. If at any point in time you want to go take care of some important business at the church, don't be afraid.
We don't take it personal.
All right, we'll move on to item B on the agenda, the first reading of the animal ordinance. Mr. Rothie, if you could please table set here for us on this one.
Sure. So before you this evening are two ordinances, both of which are 392. I've got a version A, I've got a version B. We're going to do a first reading on both of them today, and then at the next village council meeting, we'll be able to take action on both of them and see which one is going to proceed, whether it has currently drafted or is amended by action of the council. So again, just procedurally, we're just going to do the first readings of both. We'll pass them on through, and we'll return next week. Obviously, this means we can still take public comment. You can still deliberate amongst yourselves this evening. I'm around, obviously, and so is Ms. Steck. If we have questions on some of the ordinance features, I'll highlight just a few key revisions from the last time we saw this 2 council meetings ago, is we have revised the definitions for domesticated animal, livestock, and exotic animals. The livestock definition was copied and pasted from an existing state statute defining livestock, and the exotic animal definition is much more comprehensive on the types of animals that are considered exotic and not allowed under the ordinance. We did some adjustments for beehives. We rectified the concern about dog waste disposal. And now bringing me to Article 3, and I'll stop for a second here. Articles 1 and 2, no matter what happens this meeting or the next meeting, we really need to revise, because we don't have anything in our code right now after the judge's order. So it's other than the existing Article 8, which is animals. So again, the biggest time crunch is on Articles 1 and 2. Article 1 being animals in general, which include the general language of what's allowed, what's not allowed. And then Article 2 concerning cats and dogs. I imagine most of our discussion this evening will concern Article 3, keeping of chickens. Again, this is in, if you're following along in your packet, this is Ordinance 392A. You can kind of remember A for allow. That wasn't intentional, but it's just how I help remember. There are standards there for the keeping of chickens. The standards have been revised since we last met. I primarily just tried to simplify, make it less paragraph heavy and more user-friendly, added captions or headings to each of the proposed regulations. I reordered basically anything that involved that wasn't the coop or pen is now in Section 860 of Article 3. Section 861 speaks to the permit and inspection process. And then finally, for the proposed Section 862 is where all the coops and pen regulations are now contained. And in that last section in particular, I did incorporate the concept of some people have chickens in, the coops are constructed as part of an existing accessory structure, and I figured out, well, if that's the case, if somebody wants to do that, should the village council wish to move forward with that approach, we'd have to have some standards for those. We did it in a way that basically any chicken still needs to be at least with 10 feet away from any property line, and then again 30 feet away from any residential structure. Again, that doesn't matter if you have a coop that's part of an accessory structure like a garage or not. Otherwise, that's the high level, that's the table setting. Happy to answer questions that you may have.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Mr. Ryan, you have to read it now, don't you? Or
We do. Yes, sir. So this, again, is it's Ordinance 392-A, an ordinance to amend Chapter 8 of the Village Code for the Village of Beverly Hills concerning animals. And then Section 101 is a general article which talks to the intent of what the ordinance is for. It has 8-2 as definitions, which have been changed somewhat, as Mr. Rothy indicated, relative to domesticated animal. But there's a list of definitions relative to this ordinance. 8-3 is entitled Keeping of Animals, which basically says the keeping and raising of domesticated animals is permitted, and then it talks about some exclusions relative to livestock, exotic, et cetera. 8.8-4, which is currently similarly in the current ordinance, but a treatment of animals, and it lays out standards relative to how animals should be treated within the village. 8-5, again, is in the current ordinance, although it's been a little beefed up. It's cruelty. It's how people would treat animals if they treat them poorly or cruelly or maliciously. 8-6 is a new section called honeybees, and it has the regulations relative to the keeping of bees, which is not currently in the ordinance, but was discussed by the subcommittee and wanted to be placed in this ordinance, the general ordinance for animals. 8-7 is talks about how to deal with dead animals. 8-8 are animals deemed to be public nuisances, and it states what those conditions are. 8-9 is responsibility for damages. That is, the owner or possessor or occupier of an animal that causes damages would be responsible. 8-10 is a penalty section, which states it's a civil infraction and enforcement and impoundment relative to a dog or an animal if necessary. 8-11 is enforcement, which will be enforced either by the animal ordinance of the Southfield Township or the village or public safety officer. And then 8-12 is authority to inquire, and it's a duty of the animal officer to make diligent inquiry as to dogs owned or harbored, and whether or not they are licensed, properly licensed, to provide for safety for the public health, safety, and welfare. Then 8-13, violation notices just said that any matter that goes to court under a notice of violation or a violation will be held in our district court, which is the 46th District Court in the city of Southfield. Then Article 2 of 392-A is entitled 8-1, 8-41, which is cats. We have a current cat ordinance on our current ordinance, but this is this also deals with cats and the keeping of cats. 8-42 is a duty to keep a dog under reasonable control. This is in the current ordinance as well. 8-43 is entitled barking dog. Loud or frequent or habitual barking is not going to be allowed. 8-44, vicious dog, defines a vicious dog as to bites or whatnot, and what will happen in that regard. 8-45 is location and housing, which is also in the current ordinance, talking about shelter for dogs. 8-46 is fecal matter, which Mr. Rothy said was beefed up a little bit as to comments last time at the meeting. 8-47 is license required and number of dogs allowed. Every dog over 4 months of age is required to have a license, which means that dog would be vaccinated properly, and the number now allowed, the maximum number of dogs allowed in the village if this ordinance passes will be 3. Over 4 months of age. 8-48 is the licensing procedure for receiving a license in the village or township. 8-49 is a violation ticket, which indicates that if a violation is issued, that it may be paid at the township offices if for a dog license only, if that's the case. Then 8-50 is administrative. It deals with fees for what the fees of the licenses are going to be for dogs. 8-51 is a titled term of license, which is for a year, ending December 1st of each year. 8-52 is an application for kennel license. And this talks about a kennel could be 3 or more dogs, and we may want to change that to over 3 dogs, because you are allowed to have 3 dogs, and so if you have 3 dogs, we don't want to have a kennel. So We may have to tweak that a little bit, but right now, it says a kennel license will be needed for 3 or more dogs. Next, 8.53 is a dog pound. That it says it may be, again, it's a current ordinance. We don't have a dog pound in the village, but we use veterinarians and other professionals for that if necessary. 8-54 is the impounding of dogs, and this is if in fact that a dog needs to be impounded, how that occurs. 8-55 is a release of dogs and when that occurs and what the owner or possessor must do relative to that animal. 8-56 is unclaimed dogs, which talks about dogs that are not claimed up to a certain period of time, and what happens with those animals, or what can happen with those animals if they're not collected by the owner, possessor, occupier. 8-57 is a confining dog for observation, which is currently in the current ordinance. It's just if their dog needs to be examined and made sure that there's not a rabies issue, that they can do that, the village can do that. 8-58 is entitled dog bitten by another dog, and that's an issue which could be determined the animal to be a vicious dog if it's happened before. 8-59 is a quarantine, again, that the village, if necessary, is allowed the animal control officers to quarantine an animal if the facts and circumstances warrant that. So that's Article 1 and 2 of 392A. Now, Article 3 is new, dealing with chickens. And it starts out by saying the keeping of chickens shall be permitted within the single-family residential districts in the village, subject to regulations contained within this article. And then, as the village manager indicated, that 8-60 is standards for the keeping of chickens. Talks about as a permit required, the minimum lot size, it currently says 1/2 acre, the number of chickens, no more than 4 hens, birds prohibited, roosters or other classes of fowl, slaughtering is not allowed, personal use is only used and not for business or commercial use. GAMP requirements, those are the regulations by the Agriculture Department, which are the best practices for keeping and caring for chickens. H is feed, storage, and feeding practices. And it lists areas showing that appropriate feeder containers shall be used, that all feed stored outside a residential dwelling shall be contained in a metal container with tight-fitting lid to prevent access by rodents, raccoons, etc. That all feed or other items associated with the keeping of chickens shall be kept in an enclosed structure, except when in active use. 4, all food not consumed by nightfall shall not be scattered or placed in bowls on the ground, but must be removed and securely stored. Next deals with manure and how the manure for the chickens is going to be stored on the property. Next is nuisance prevention, and that this is subject to any nuisance ordinances or violations in the village. And then next is containment, and that the chickens shall always be kept inside a pen or coop and must be shut in their coop from sunset to sunrise, and coops and pens shall comply with section 8-62 of this article, which will be after 8-61. 8-61 is entitled Permit and Inspection, and it says first that a compliance is required, that anybody that is going to keep chickens within the village must obtain a permit and comply with the following standards. Then it talks about what permit approval, inspection, and revocation. That is how a person goes to get a permit from the village, inspections that's required, and how revocation can occur if someone does not follow the rules relative to these standards. C is additional permit standards, that they'll be valid for 1 year and they're not transferable and should be site-specific. D talks about additional inspections. It's that after initial inspection, permitted coop shall be inspected at least 1 additional time during the permit term, and the permit term, if I didn't say it earlier, is valid for up to 1 year. The 8-62 now as we're dealing with structures and care and and housing of the chickens. So it's entitled Coops and Pens. And it says enclosures defined and required, and it has standards for a coop or a hen house, be completely enclosed structure that provides shelter for chickens. A pen is a fenced enclosure typically attached to the coop that is mostly open to the elements that allows chickens to leave the coop while remaining in a predator-safe environment. A coop may be housed, as the village manager said, within an accessory structure, provided that all requirements of the section are met. Then the second section is size, that freestanding coops, excuse me, scoops and poops and coops, so pardon me. So anyway, freestanding coops shall be located outdoors, and the combined total size of the coops and the pens shall not exceed 40 square feet in size. Then third is applicability of accessory standard structures. These are considered accessory buildings pursuant to the zoning ordinance, and that they are allowed and they are attached and are considered in the combined floor use for accessory structures on the ordinance. C talks about location of where freestanding coops and pens may be. As the village manager indicated, they have to be a minimum of 10 feet from any side or rear lot line and at least 30 feet from any principal residential structure on adjacent property. Next, coops within accessory structures are allowed, provided they shall comply with the setback requirements applicable to freestanding pens. The pen height is the next section. If it's not fully covered, it must be at least 42 inches in height, and bird wings must be clipped to prevent escape. Coop features, they shall have a roof and a door that can be tightly secured, and they shall be readily accessible for cleaning. They shall be properly ventilated and provided with natural or artificial light sufficient for health of the chickens. Construction, next standard. Coops and pens shall be constructed of durable materials such as treated wood, vinyl or metal mesh, excluding corrugated metal, sheet metal, plastic tarps, or scrap lumber, and shall be properly maintained in accordance with the International Property Maintenance Code, which has been adopted by the village. G is entitled Predator Protection. The coop must have a door which must be closed and locked from sundown to sunrise to protect the chickens from predators. And next, the coop shall be constructed and maintained in a manner to prevent rodents and other animals from harboring beneath or entering the coop. It talks about rat walls or block foundations, and that the coop is a minimum to be 12 inches off the ground. H is entitled Removal of Coops and Pens. And it says that these pens shall be removed only within 60 days following the expiration of the year permit. 8-63 is private restrictions, and this refers to the fact that this article, these are independent and not intended to supersede or affect any private restrictions such as deed restrictions or bylaws that may apply to a person's property. The next, Section 201 is a severability clause, 301 is a savings clause, 401 is a repealer clause, and 501 would be an effective date, which by charter is 20 days or can be sooner if necessary. That would be the first reading, basically of 392A, sections 1, 2, and 3, and also section 392B, which is only section 1 and 2, unless you want me to go through section 3. And I spent a little extra time on section 3, just so, because this is new, and just so people could understand what it says. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Does anyone have questions for Mr. Ryan here?
I do. I have a couple, if that would be all right, Mr. Drummond. Thank you, Mr. Ryan, for going through that. That was really helpful, the way you framed that. So my first question is on section 812, authority to inquire, and it shall be the duty of the animal control officer to make diligent inquiry, et cetera. as to dogs owned. And I'm just wondering if this is our sort of sole inspection authority, and should there be, some sort of problem with a cat, or if we do adopt Section 3 and a chicken, does this limit our ability for our animal control officer to deal with other types of problem animals, or does that sort of authority live elsewhere?
Well, this is really specific to dogs, just because they're licensed. And so, for instance, if the animal control officer finds out that a license that's expired or something, they're allowed, they can go and find out if the dog has been properly vaccinated or not. That's specific to dogs. Now, cats, they're not licensed, and chickens that's new, so that's going to be on a complaint-only basis, because unless somebody, we can't be everywhere, and it's really on a complaint-based system. So if there's an issue that comes to the attention of the animal control officer by somebody who notices something, they are allowed to inquire about that if they believe that public health, safety, and general welfare is impaired by whatever the issue is.
Okay, so we still have general sort of inspection authority for anything subject?
Yeah, but
okay.
I just want everybody to know it's going to be on inspection. People aren't going to.
Yeah, understood.
Okay.
Understood. Mr. Drummond, is it okay if I ask? I just have a couple.
Sure,
Is that okay?
go ahead.
Section 843, louder, frequent, or habitual barking. I'm wondering if this meets the standard that we've been learning about, are our ordinances specific enough, right? Is there subjectivity, in what is loud and frequent and habitual? And is there best practice that you're aware of in any other community or available through MML or something as to how our ordinance officer, our animal officer, or public safety would judge this situation?
Yeah, I mean, nobody, the ordinances I'm aware of, they all pretty much say this, which are obviously vague. I get that. It's going to be complaint-based. And, I mean, we don't have a decibel meter or whatever, but I mean, if somebody, again, complains and the animal ordinance officer goes out there and, I mean, it's sometimes I understand people have, like a neighbor has recorded the noise, the barking, and with the timer on their phone. I mean, but there's really, it's hopefully, it'll be a knock on the door and say, you got to bring your dog in or something, and, nobody wants to issue a violation, but it gives a little leeway to say, look, I mean, if it's like the fourth time they've been back there or something, and it's like that's a habitual problem, and they could issue a notice of violation, a ticket. Again, this is a civil infraction, so it's not beyond a reasonable doubt. People are entitled to a jury trial. It's 51%. Is it more likely than that this animal's been a problem in the past and is continuing to do so?
Okay.
Hopefully that answers your question.
It does. I appreciate that. I understand, we can't put a quantitative measure on everything, but I appreciate the way you phrased that approach, and I would hope that would be the approach. I mean, I understand that we don't have control of the ordinance officer, right? They don't work for us, and so I just want to make sure that's.
But we see compliance. It's only at the last minute, the last possible effort, if we're not getting any compliance, that the tickets issue, citations issue.
Can I comment real quick too on this, just to help guide the conversation? Under this ordinance, the animal control officer definition was changed. It formerly only really recognized that we had an ACO that was provided by Southfield Township. Under this new ordinance, every time you read the words animal control officer in here, it no longer is just referring to that person. It is referring to anybody so empowered by the village to do enforcements, whether that's the code enforcement officer, any lawfully sworn public safety officer, theoretically myself. I think too, if somebody in the audience wants to join our team and are qualified, I could probably make them, an animal. Yeah, I could deputize them as well. So I want to put that out there when we're talking about who's doing the enforcements. And then the only other thing I'll mention real quick, in case there's more questions, and I know Mr. Schaefer's probably going to bring it up, there's a lot of references in our ordinance to the township and actions of the township, and we can't really have an ordinance commanding another entity what to do. We talked about this in the subcommittee, and the township right now, again, I'm maybe not everybody follows them. They're actually updating their animal ordinance right now, too. They actually had a meeting, I was on their last agenda last week, and they're actually going through and looking at the dog licensing process. Right now, it's just a one-year license where we know rabies vaccines, for example, can be up to 3 years. And we do need to do, again, we need to update at a minimum revisions to Article 1 and Article 2 before the expiration of the moratorium. But I do intend that once the township codifies their practices, then we can harmonize and come back to some of this dog language in particular, and any language going on the township. So again, that's coming, so that doesn't mean just ignore it and sweep that part under the rug, but that's kind of why some of these that talk about the township, or, why haven't we looked at this section, or, on dogs a little bit more closely, it's because that's the intention, is we'll be revisiting that once that work is done by the township.
Okay, I appreciate that, Mr. Warren. Last one, Mr. Drummond. So I think I'll anticipate your answer, Mr. Warren. Is that the same for Section 8-56, unclaimed dogs? I'm curious if this is actually our current practice, and if not, it seems a bit harsh. All dogs not claimed and released to the owner within 4 days shall be destroyed, or if the animal is deemed valuable, may be sold for fees. And I would be
That will be one of
surprised
the
if that was our
sections that's
current
revisited.
practice. Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
And again, we do get into an interesting dynamic here where the animal control officer is, while he's serving us in the village, he's a contractor of the township. So that's why, again, as they figure that process out, we will come back, and likely every section you see the word dog in is probably going to be revised in one way, shape, or form.
All right, I appreciate that, Mr. Rothy. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Drummond. That's all I have.
Any other questions for Mr. Ryan before I open up the comments here?
Well, yeah, before we, I want to, if I may.
Sure. Please.
I still have some problems with this barking dog section, 843, because there are requirements after the Gasper versus the People that, number one, there not be only one trier of fact in order for an ordinance to be considered constitutional. And a person must be able to read the ordinance and know when they are in violation. None of those are met with the current wording under barking dog. So, and as of now, two people can read the same ordinance and come up with a different conclusion. So this section is not considered constitutional under the requirements of the Michigan Supreme Court, I guess. So again, I think we need to have a quantitative time limit, which I get that other municipalities may have something more vague, but that's just because they haven't updated it. If we're updating it, we should make sure that it's within the realm of constitutionality, as we're required to do. There are a lot of municipalities that put 15 minutes. So it's something that I would like to please be considered. And that's all I have.
Okay. Any other questions from Mr. Ryan?
I would just briefly respond that you have to understand the words say what they say, and the process is that nobody's getting a ticket the first time out, maybe not the second time out. The animal control officer's been there. Everybody wants compliance, and maybe oftentimes people are away and they leave their dog out and they're gone longer than they think, and the dog's barking a lot. So it's all there are different circumstances, and at some point you have to give the animal officer the discretion. He or she's not going to issue a ticket right off the bat. They're going to see compliance, but if they've been there a few times for the same issue, I think that they're going to meet the standard of habitual and frequent, but that's just my point. Nobody's getting a ticket first time out.
But we wouldn't be allowed to give them a ticket underneath this because there is no way for somebody to know when they are in violation of the law.
I respectfully disagree with that, but that's okay.
Okay.
Any other questions, Mr. Ryan? Okay, at this point, it's 7:39 PM. I'd like to open public comment for items or for comments from the public on the animal ordinances that have been read tonight as part of the first reading. So if anyone has any comments, please come to the podium, state your name, state your street you live on. We do have a decent amount of people here and online tonight. I would ask that we keep them to 4 minutes for the comments, just for respect, so we can hear from everyone here tonight.
Peggy Brady, Pebblestone Court. As I mentioned in the last meeting, I am not in favor of allowing any village resident to have live chickens in their backyard. I don't see a benefit to the village. It's added administrative costs for permits, inspections, and enforcement, potential for risk to personal health. We shouldn't continue to waste council time on this issue. This should be an issue that needs to go on the ballot. The council should not make this decision.
Thank you. I see online, Ms. Schultz, if you would please just state your address, name.
Hi, I'm Ellie Schultz. I live on Dunblane Avenue. Sorry, one second, I have my headphones in and it's giving me a lot of feedback. Trying this again. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to address this evening the chicken ordinance and specifically, again, the lot size restriction. I went through the village parcel map by hand, and out of all the single-family parcels in Beverly Hills, only about 878 are 20,000 square feet or larger. More than 3,200 are smaller.
I'm sorry, we are having a little trouble hearing you. If you could just speak up a little bit.
Many of those 20,000 plus parcels are not true half-acre properties and are actually in restricted communities where chickens wouldn't be allowed to be kept anyway. The problem I'm seeing is a lot of the people in these neighborhoods where chickens aren't even part of the question are really wanting to set these rules about what other residents can do on their properties where they don't live, and it's not fair. State legislators through House Bill 4049 have said a quarter acre with setbacks is sufficient. Beverly Hills shouldn't demand double than that, especially when we already know that we allow more disruptive things like loud parties, leaf blowers, floodlights, and all of that without lot size restrictions. So again, this is a matter of responsible care and proper setbacks, not lot size. Please remove the restriction or lessen it, especially to about a quarter of an acre. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We did have one more person online there, possibly, it looks like Mr. Young, if you would like to state your address, or your street name.
Sure, Riverside Drive. Yeah, so I agree with the notion that we shouldn't allow chickens at all. So I'll just say that up front. I do have some concerns about the proposed ordinance to allow chickens. So let me address those. If you compare the August 19th version to the latest version, section 8-61D is substantially different. And I'm surprised Mr. Rothy didn't call out the fact that it's substantially different. In the prior version, 8-61D stated, any person wishing to keep chickens must obtain a permit and comply with the standards contained in. All persons keeping chickens, including those prior to the adoption of the ordinance, must obtain a permit, etc. So I'm wondering, why did we take that out, 8-61D? Because now it's substantially different. Second issue is 8-62F is gone. And so 8-62F in the prior version, August 19th version, was a long list of issues that defined sanitary conditions. And I think if you go back to the preamble talking about why we're doing this, if we're really concerned about the health and welfare of the community, then those sanitary conditions should be enumerated in detail like they were in the prior version. So maybe we can discuss why that is. And I think the attorney, Mr. Ryan, he kind of glossed over section 301 the savings clause, and I'd like to have a better understanding of what that means, if possible. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yo. Do we have anyone else here in the public present tonight that would like to come speak? Please do.
Todd Schaefer, Sunset Drive. I feel like, do I get played off if I go over 4 minutes? We at the Emmys,
We did talk
The
about the hook.
donations just go down to the Boys and Girls Club.
So, Mr. Rothy already made mention of one of the points I wanted to bring up today, but I want to reiterate that the only time sensitivity here is we have no ordinance. At the moment, you're living in a moratorium world that will expire, and the thing that makes the most logical sense is to address Articles 1 and 2 of the new chapter. And from the email I sent you, you know, I think there's a lot of work that still needs to be done on that, and that's where the time should be focused before that timer runs out. And since that seems like that may already be the plan to revisit things later on the dog side of things, certainly the same approach could be taken as to the chicken issue, which I think should be put on the ballot. With regard to 8.6 and bees, I noticed that in the Article 3 dealing with chickens, we reference generally accepted agricultural and management practices. I do believe that those are also things that could be applied to beekeeping. We really don't have much in the way of standards addressed in this, and this is really a late ad that was mentioned. I don't think it was even approved by the subcommittee. I attended all the meetings. I think it was discussed, but never something the subcommittee said they definitely wanted in here. I think that really needs some focus. Mr. Ryan, you mentioned potentially changing the kennel reference to more than 3 dogs in 852. I think if we read that in its entirety, it's only about dogs you keep for breeding, et cetera. So I think it's fine. It's not incongruous with having 3 dogs. Mr. Rothy, you mentioned that nobody can have chickens within 10 feet, that you kept that. Perhaps I misunderstood, but the language in C1 and C2, when read together, says there is no setback requirement for a coop inside an accessory structure. So somebody could, since an accessory structure can be located closer than 10 feet to a side yard, they could actually have a chicken closer than that. Finally, the key issue is in Section 3.01. Gee, I could slow down. I still have 2 full minutes. Section 3.01 and the savings clause. I'm sorry, I've been doing this for 30-plus years. I've worked with Mr. Ryan for many of those on the zoning board. I honestly can't make heads or tails out of what the intent is of this. I mean, I know what the underlying intent is. I don't think the words say that. If we're going to talk about things that are ambiguous or susceptible of multiple meanings, I think that needs some work. And I think the key is to actually come out and say what is the case. So there's been a lot of discussion back and forth about what the world we live in today is, with a judge having essentially stricken the ordinance as it exists and the moratorium that's put in place. The village needs to be crystal clear that what has happened is the ordinance is gone and the moratorium has essentially left how the village interpreted this in place. And the village has interpreted its past ordinance as not permitting chickens. So you cannot have a chicken. You couldn't have a chicken before. If you pass Article 3, you will be able to have chickens. But regardless, this language and the potential requirement for permits need to work together, and I don't know that they do. That's what I have. Thanks.
Thank you.
Linda Remington, Lincolnshire East. I found it very confusing hearing the differences between the names of people who will be following up with complaints and inspections. And I think, Mr. Rothy, you talked about Southfield Township. There's the village. I'd like a clear explanation of how many people we are talking about who are on the payroll to maintain control of dogs, chickens, whatever, cats, I don't know. As I've said before, I'm definitely against the chicken ordinance. I do want to say that it should be on the ballot. But if you will consider coming back to us, how many people are able to follow up with inspections? I've heard it mentioned best practices tonight. I've learned the hard way that neighbors don't always follow best practices. I have neighbors who feed the deer. They don't follow what is being told to them. I'm worried about a rodent problem with the chickens. I just read the other day that Plymouth now is a severe rat problem in part of its village. And I know Berkeley and Royal Oaks certainly have a rat problem. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Megan Lyle, Pickwick, and I just want to say I'm against having the chickens in the village from a public health safety standpoint, and also the rodents. I've seen an increase of rodents just around my property from people feeding deer and birds, and I'd really rather not have any more of that. I talked to the animal control officer a couple of years ago, and he said the reason we have a problem now with coyotes is because people are feeding different things and there's extra feed around. And I know that, as you said, that there's limitations on how the food should be stored and taken care of. And again, we just have people that aren't totally following any restrictions that they have. So, thank you. Also, from a property value standpoint, I'm worried about property values.
Thank you.
Hi, Tammy Wilms, Waltham Drive. I've been up here previous times, 8 years ago, and now I think I've stated my reasons pretty clearly of why I'm against chickens. I don't want to continue to rehash the same things, but I support a lot of what other people have said. I think we already have a deer problem. We have a coyote problem. This much time being spent on chickens, which only benefits what I think is the minority of people who want chickens, doesn't seem to make sense to me. I also read this about Plymouth having the rat problem recently. I know that they passed a chicken ordinance in 2021, and I don't think that any of the communities can say why a rat problem is occurring. I think there are multiple reasons, but I certainly don't think that having chickens helps. One of the things in the ordinance was having the feed picked up every night. I kind of think that the average family with children and sports and jobs and being online, I can't imagine that people truly are going to pick up feed every night. There's also the whole manure thing. I don't know if people are going to follow that. How much are we going to spend on this? How much is a permit going to be? And if you have a permit violation, how many times is somebody going to go out, and are we going to pay for this? And onwards. I also find it interesting that at all of these meetings, so many people are saying, and I'm championing this, that we want this to go to the ballot. And all these people get up here and talk about it, and most of the times that I have listened, which has not been every time, council members are not commenting on that. And I would really encourage all of you to go on the record and say what your opinion is about putting it on the ballot and why you feel that you are better informed as to make this decision for us, when clearly this is the one issue that for years now has brought more people to these meetings than anything else has. So I would welcome your input on this and why you feel pro that or against it, and to go on the record and say that, because I think just ignoring that piece makes me personally feel as if my comments aren't really mattering to anyone. So that's it. I would also like to end by saying thank you for doing what you do. This is not an easy job. I appreciate all of the time that goes into this and all of the great things that you do. I don't just want to come up and complain, but this issue seems to me to be something that would also be better served for you guys if it went to the ballot. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Go ahead.
My name is Karen Lilly, and I live on East Valley Woods Drive, and I have not attended a village meeting since the sidewalk situation 20 years ago. And I'm just here to put a face on my vote that I don't agree with the chicken situation either. I've heard talk about it going to the ballot as an idea for people to actually be able to vote on it. I think that's a great idea. So just wanted to put my 2 cents in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alan Studi, Dunblane Avenue. I spoke a couple of meetings ago that I am opposed to chickens in the village, and my opinion has not changed on that. I think you could write an ordinance that's, everybody thinks is bulletproof, and it doesn't change the fact that we don't need chickens in the village. Everybody else who has spoken against this here this evening, I think, has made excellent points. There's the concerns of rats, other rodents and things that will infest the village. I completely concur with the woman behind me here on her comments, and I'm concerned about property value. And I look at council and I say, you guys are elected by the village to represent the village. And what I hear repeatedly from the majority of the village is, we don't want chickens. So if you're representing us, then I think the message is not being heard. And I'm sure if this goes on a ballot, it will go down in flames. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none in person or online here, I'm going to close public comments on the animal ordinance for tonight. Open up to discussion here amongst council.
Just one more question, Mr. Drummond.
Sure.
Mr. Rothi, do you have a thought on timeline for Southfield Township and their reworking of their dog licensing process?
First, I believe dog licensing is done on a calendar year basis, right, here? Okay, I know that they want to get it in place before the upcoming licensing cycle starts. I actually had a conversation with Supervisor Mooney late last week about just, about the dog thing, where she gave me a progress update on their ordinance, and I know that she's like, I'm not going to order any of the one-year licenses just yet until we figure ours out, but I know they're actively working on it. I think it'll be, I know they don't have a meeting every month. I think their next one is October, but I know they're moving quickly, and I think they'll have their licensing standard revised before, but I cannot, it's not a unit of the government. I can't speak definitively to them.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So as far as tonight's agenda item on the first reading of the ordinance, we've had the reading, we've listened to some public comments. We can discuss here a little bit more. We don't have any action requirement for tonight other than just the first reading, which has already taken place. But if there's anything that we want to discuss, or if there's direction we want to do for changes to the ordinance, we can discuss that by all means now.
A quick question for administration. Is there a reason why, so the GAMPs under the Right to Farm Act are specifically laid out for commercial practices, which go by animal units, And so in order for them to apply, like an animal unit for chickens is $5,000 hens. So I'm wondering, like, the housing and the restrictions around that are so far outside of what we have written here, that I guess I'm not really understanding how having those GAMPs in here does anything for the ordinance. It doesn't apply. There's no way for it to apply for any of this. And our ordinance, honestly, is because of the way our ordinance is currently in its state written for residential areas, there's not really any portion of the GAMP that we aren't already managing within the actual ordinance. And so I guess I'm just not, we're actually probably a little bit more restrictive than the GAMPs are. So I'm just trying to understand, like, was it read through? What part of it do we think applies, and why do we have it in there?
So I believe it was put in there prior to the subcommittee completing its work. I don't remember if it when it was put in. I know it was put in one of the drafts. I know this language is copy and pasted from several of the other local community ordinances that speak to the keeping of chickens. Obviously, I know the GAMPs apply to a much larger scale, usage of chickens. So again, I'd be happy to review it and come back. But I believe it was, if not, it wasn't really something that was discussed much at the subcommittee. I think we all kind of just intuitively thought it could be good to have in here, as the language is an existing battle-tested regulation in other municipal ordinances. But without having more thorough understanding of the GAMPs, I really can't offer much more comment this evening.
Okay, yeah, I think that would be helpful. I have just one other question under 8-60, when it's talking about commerce and selling. I had a conversation at the beginning of the subcommittees with, and sorry, I don't have his name written down, but it's the MSU Extension Attorney for the Right to Farm Act. He essentially assists all municipalities with Right to Farm Act issues for the state of Michigan. And he highly recommended not putting anything in that curtails commerce, because he said federally it can get you into some trouble. And probably wouldn't hold up in court. He recommended managing commerce within the realms of managing how many animals are allowed and structures that are allowed within the village. 4 hens is at the very most going to provide 4 eggs a day, and that's in the first 1 to 2 years, and then it may only be 1 egg a day. It's not honestly enough for most people to have extra to sell. And so I think that we have done a good job of managing that, but I don't necessarily see a lot of commerce happening around this just because of the number. And I don't necessarily know that us managing commerce is going to cause us any benefit. So that's my thought on that. And I have other general thoughts about things, but that was just my questions to administration.
Mr. Chairman, could I add one thing? Maybe, Mr. Ruthie, as you consider the applicability of GAMPs, one thing we might want to think about, Mr. Ryan, I wonder if you have any thoughts on is, as I understand it, the purpose of GAMPs is to provide some protection to farmers, right, under the Right to Farm Act, that if they're following generally accepted agricultural management practices, it generally shields you from nuisance complaints, right? You can't move out to a rural area and then complain that chickens stink, right? Like, that's the point of GAMPs and Right to Farm. I wouldn't want our inclusion of GAMPs to imply that those sort of protections exist and are different than what we provide for in our ordinance, which, limits and attempts to prevent people from creating a nuisance. So I think it's a good point. And if we've got an adequately descriptive ordinance, which it seems like there was a really good faith effort to draw up a very descriptive ordinance, maybe we don't need the reference to GAMPs at all. Thank you. And maybe, and I would suggest maybe the same applies. I think there was a public comment about whether or not the GAMPs for bees was appropriate to reference. So maybe the same concept could be carried out there. Maybe we can look at what those management practices are, bring them into our ordinance, and then skip the reference.
And Mr. Rothy, I think I did share the number of that gentleman, but I do have it in my notes. I'm happy to share it again to the two of you if you want. You know, he was wonderful to speak with, and knew a lot about how this applies to ordinance writing for municipalities to have like a really well-written ordinance around these sorts of issues. So I'll forward that to you again, and anybody else that wants it, I'm happy to.
Mr. Mercer?
Yeah, a couple of comments. One, as regard to commerce and business, our zoning ordinance does not allow for businesses in zoning, in residential zoned areas, so you can't have a home-based business. So you're regulating as it is of not being able to sell things out of your house. Now, that doesn't mean you can't work out of your house. You can obviously work out of your house. You just can't have a home-based business. You can't be selling things out of your house. You can't, be running a nursery out of your house. You can't be running some type of business out of your house. That's in violation of our zoning ordinance, not our general ordinance. We allow commerce, obviously, in the village in certain districts. That's where they're allowed. I don't see there's any issue with including commerce in our general ordinance as it pertains to chickens and saying just that we're not allowing them to be sold. We can absolutely regulate that within our village if we deem that so. So the other thing is, I know that Southfield Township is looking at a new system for dogs and licensing of animals, and in our case, dogs. And they're using, I think, the SB&A system, possibly? Is there an add-on to that system that allows them to then go to a 1, 2, 3 year type tracking of that, so that it kind of lines up with rabies vaccinations, so that that's kind of enforceable. Also, in enforcement in 811, it's pretty clear what it calls out. And then also to the comment of who can enforce, that is also, I can't remember if that's is that in 812? Let me go back up here and find it. Sorry, I've missed my bookmark.
Yeah, I think.
But
So.
you've defined that it can be basically a police officer, animal control officer from Southfield Township, or anybody else that we deem to do that, such as our code enforcement person could do it, somebody else in the village.
Building official.
Yeah, somebody that's out and about whoever we deem necessary. So that's basically what we're putting in of who can enforce this. And I believe a lot of times, even before this ordinance, if we had an issue with after hours with a barking dog, say, that usually people would call, people weren't calling the village, they were calling 911, and they were dispatching an officer to take care of that. Correct?
Yes, I believe that's how it works.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mercer. Any other things we'd like to discuss on this item?
I mean, I feel like it's hard to discuss a whole lot of it because we're short so many members, but, we have obviously heard a lot about the half-acre lot restriction. That does take out, a large swath of the village that if this were to be allowed, the places it would actually be allowed, by the time you take out, you look at the ones that are a half acre, and then anybody in deed restricted HOA like Georgetown, Nottingham, Huntley, Westwood, they're already not going to be. So essentially, we would be going through all this to write an ordinance for 20 people that would actually be allowed to have it on their property. You know, we do have some pretty solid guidelines as far as setbacks that are in alignment with other communities. So that's something that, that I think we should bring up. And then the other thing is inspections. I believe that we need to have an inspection. I'm not saying we don't, but I'm not sure how 2 inspections a year is, you know, a good use of time if there's no issues. So I guess I would ask to consider, you know, maybe within the first year, there's 2, you know, and then the following year, there's 1 inspection a year. And then after that, we look at you know, after 2 years, if you've had perfect inspections and you've had 0 complaints, then is it worth our time, if you're doing it well, to sit there and come twice a year after that? We don't, you know, when somebody gets a dog, we're not sitting there inspecting to make sure they're picking up their dog poop all the time and keeping them contained. We're not inspecting, you know, to make sure somebody's scooping their cat litter box all the time. So it seems like it's a little over the top for one particular animal. You know, we're not inspecting honeybee hives to make sure that they're being kept within a specific parameter ever. And, you know, there's just as much of an opportunity for people to be stung and have anaphylaxis or whatever else. If honeybees aren't properly kept, you know, there can be issues with aggression. So I think that would be something to consider if we're looking at, number one, the amount of time our administration has and the actual need for inspections. And I know, you know, there are people that have been managing chickens in the village for many years here, and they've had 0 inspections. And I'm not saying we should have 0 inspections, but I'm saying that it shows that people are able to do it properly and do it without nuisance. And so I think that if we're considering homeowners and administrative rights, or administrative time, we should consider maybe a timeline for inspections to make sure that people are doing it well to begin with. And then once they've shown they have responsible practices, maybe allow them to live their lives and let administration focus on some other things. That's all I have.
Anyone else? Everyone okay if we move on then to consent agenda item G, which we move to tonight's business agenda?
Works for me.
So again, this is consent agenda item number G, which we move to the business agenda. And it essentially is the schedule for next year's council meetings. So, Mr. Mercer, I do believe you requested this to be moved here. So if you have something you'd like to bring up.
So in, I think it was either the last meeting of October last year or the first meeting of November last year, this came up. I was not on the council, but I did listen to the conversation on this, and the meeting times were changed to 7 p.m., and we said that, well, the council said at the time that we'd revisit that if we wanted to keep that 7 p.m. start time or go back to 7:30. So I thought it was important enough that we bring it back to discussion to see if we still want to keep with the 7 o'clock or move to 7:30, that's all.
I appreciate you bringing this one up.
I know, I just don't have a good answer. So like,
I don't either.
It's, I mean, 7 p.m. is hard getting here sometimes with kids' events, like, it's hard. I'm at a dead run and, you know, trying to figure out and missing, but I don't know that half hour, honestly. I don't know, it's hard, I'm open either way, like, I understand administration and their need to get home at a reasonable hour as well. It's hard because we are short people tonight to try and figure out the time. So maybe, I don't know, we don't have to have the time today, we just need to have the dates for the calendar, correct? Like, is that something that maybe we can discuss the?
Time goes in the calendar too.
Oh.
I can wait till October.
Okay. I think it's hard for the four of us to make a decision without everybody else here. You drive the farthest on.
I appreciate that, and because it feels a little selfish, I think that's why I'm reserving comment. I know it is only a half an hour, but sometimes it's really difficult. I am curious, what our residents think. People have their workday to finish, try to have a meal with their family, and then get here to participate. The flip side of it is, the later we start, sometimes the later we go, right? And so when folks are sitting here, they want to get home as well. So, I really do appreciate you bringing it up, Mr. Mercer, because I was considering it as well. I can live with it staying at 7 o'clock, although it is far from my preference. But I'm curious what administration thinks or what our residents think in terms of whether it's there's a significant difference there. Or Mr. Drummond or Mr. Mercer, if you've got an opinion on it, you brought it up, so I appreciate you bringing it up.
Thank you, both of you guys. My opinion on it, the 7 is difficult. It does conflict, I have to leave Cub Scouts meetings early to get here on time. But again, I also get up around 4:30 every morning to go to work, so when we go to midnight, that gives me 4 hours of sleep. So that extra half an hour, 4.5 hours of sleep is a lot better than 4 hours of sleep. So I do understand the 7, and I do also understand on administration, we ask them to stay here, right? They don't really go home and come back. So that is a lot more of their time too. So I'm equally torn on it. And personally, I think it might be better to have the full council here, and if the timeline allows, it might be a good idea for us to discuss it with the full depth of council here.
And at the same time, if all four of us agree, then we can just leave it and move on and not have a problem. I just brought it up because I know it was an issue. I don't personally really have similar issues that you have. That's probably fortunate for me, although I did it one time, so I understand that. But also, I rush to get here. I usually stay at work a little later, and I don't go in at 4:30 in the morning, so I stay a little later. But if everybody's fine with it, I don't have a problem with the 7 o'clock myself. I can be 7:32, and again, I'd prefer to get out of here a half hour earlier probably than we do. So I like the flip side, but I just wanted to bring it up in case we wanted to discuss it. If not, I'll offer a resolution. I don't have a problem with that.
How does administration feel?
I'm not a voting member.
I know. We switched it.
I would offer a resolution to begin at 6:30, but, I personally think 7 is an appropriate amount of time. I think a lot of people, when it's 7:30, then you get how late's too late, how late's too early.
Right.
I would say that I think the council is well within its rights to, if it goes a few more months at 7 or 7:30 and they want to revisit it, doesn't matter what the calendar says, matters what this body adopts and is free to change. So if that's the most political answer I can give, I would say we could keep it at 7, but I work at the pleasure of the council. So whenever the council wants to meet, I will be there. And so will everybody else.
Mr. Drummond, not to belabor the point, but if we want to take public comment on it, we could take public comment.
Sure.
Yeah, how does it affect?
Would anyone from the public like to come up and speak again? Just please your name and street you live on.
Peggy Brady, Pebblestone Court. It does matter what the calendar says because people are going to look at it and read it. If you're going to keep changing the time, it doesn't help to print it in there. Then you're going to just keep getting calls. I did not like that comment. 7 o'clock, I think, is great for your meetings. Please keep it at that. Is that the only thing to comment on? Because I have one other thing.
For now.
We have another.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have
Beverly.
another.
Any other public comments on meeting schedule and timing for 2026? Okay, Seeing none, I'm going to close public comments on that item. And then for us moving forward,
I'm going to offer a resolution and we can vote on it here. If we vote it down, it'll come back. Okay?
Fair
I'm
enough.
sure that Mr. Rothy will put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
But no,
Be resolved, the Village Council, Beverly Hills Village Council hereby adopts the meeting schedule and time for calendar year 2026 as listed above.
Support.
motion and support. Ms. Brown, if you could please take roll.
Ms. Rodrusco?
What do I do first? Yes.
Ms. Cascametti?
Yes.
Mr. Mercer?
Yes.
Mr. Drummond?
Yes,
Motion passed.
look at that.
Now we all get to complain to ourselves. Everybody
And
else
we
can
only
tell us we
spent
did it.
10 minutes on it, okay?
Understood. All
Thanks.
right, that takes us through tonight's business agenda. At this point, we do have another comment period for public comments, so if anyone wanted to make an additional public comment, please come up.
You could have just hung out.
Pebblestone Court, it's giving me extra steps. I have a question on sidewalks. There has been a lot of clearing along 13 Mile between Groves and Woodside, and I wanted to know what the status of, if anything, of a sidewalk in that area.
May I answer that?
Sure, yeah, in this case, yeah.
So it's gone out to bid.
I'm sorry?
The work has gone out to bid
gone out to
after the
bid.
engineering, so we received the bids back on October 3rd.
Okay, they haven't come
At
back
that
yet.
point, we'll open them up, and whoever is the contractor that the bid is awarded to, we will get scheduling and timeline for them. Our hope is to do some of the groundwork and the retaining wall work and the prep work through the winter time, because obviously you can't lay concrete in the dead of winter, but you can get other things ready. So our hope is to do, given the contractor schedule, working with our hope, I should say, our hope is to do as much of that prep work ahead of time so that as close to the beginning of spring as possible, we can get our sidewalks laid.
So that is still in the plan
Yes,
to do
yes.
that?
We cleared it ahead of time because there was a limit within the TAP grant for bat nesting, and so you could not remove any trees from March to November. So if we hadn't done it over last winter, it might have put us off all this fall time work until the following year. So we wanted to make sure we got it cleared so that as soon as we could start work, it was cleared and we could start work.
Thank you. I'm really happy to hear that after over 40 years in the village, we are finally going to get a sidewalk on 13 Mile between Woodside and Groves.
Yes, I couldn't agree more.
Thank you.
And I appreciate Mrs. Hydrusko's very succinct comment on that. And you're here tonight, and I'm glad you brought it up, but also remember, you can always call the village if you have a question, and I think they would give you the same answer, but I appreciate the perspective, and
Now everybody gets to hear it.
that's right, well, everybody that's listening, which is the rest of,
All 12 people.
they're going to watch it afterwards, they're time shifting.
I've seen, we get like 4 views, but yes.
Any other public comments tonight? Okay, seeing none, we can move on to manager's report.
Yes, good evening again. A few items real quick for the manager report to highlight. We have a YouTube channel now, so not only can you watch on whatever the channel number is here, I'm not in the market, so I don't get it, or on Zoom, but we live stream on YouTube, and all our meetings going forward are now on YouTube. We're not adding all the old ones back to YouTube at the moment, but YouTube's kind of nice. They have the auto captioning feature, so you can kind of read the script after the live broadcast is made, and this actually will integrate nicely when we launch the new meeting viewing platform. You'll be able to go to like any historic agenda minutes, and the link to the meeting will be right there. It'll be integrated, so you can watch and review the previous minutes. Other technology updates, live as of today is a new zoning map on our website. I don't know if anybody clicked on the link in my report or on the website, but I want to do a big push, and this is very easy and inexpensive for HRC to do because we kind of already have all this data, just a matter of putting it on a public viewer, but we're going to have a spot on the website where it's just called maps. So if you want to see the map of when the trash is picked up, when your utility billing thing is, what your zoning is, the current road projects that we've got going on, kind of like a historical look on what roads we fixed each year, all of that's in the works. So that's kind of a little teaser. Again, the zoning map's up right now, and it's kind of cool. You can click on your house and it actually says this is your zoning district, and then in the box that pops up, is a link to the zoning ordinance that actually shows you you're zoned RA. You click that, it'll show you what's allowed and what's not allowed on the RA property. So again, just a customer service thing that we're working on. One of the sidewalk projects that doesn't get a lot of attention at our meetings is just our kind of standard. We had Precision Concrete come through, grind all the sidewalks out. If there was one that they couldn't, and this is in different areas of town moving east to west, I think. Okay, thank you. But the sidewalk replacement project is just anything they couldn't cut, we were coming in and replacing. Most of that cost was on us. The few property owners were determined that they were responsible. They were specially assessed. I just want to say that that project went very smooth. It's already done, so very happy with the work Luigi has done. And Director Johnson, as soon as Precision finishes the next district, he's going to start walking, so that way we can have a little bit more time to figure out what we're going to do next year for budgeting, as well as if there are people who are going to receive that assessment going forward, we'll give them even more heads up than they had this year. I did get to attend, I don't really have anything to report from them, but I was able to attend my first SACRA and SACWA meeting. Director Johnston usually goes to those, but it was good he had another commitment, so it was good for me to go and begin getting plugged in with those two regional authorities. Again, just want to plug the regional authority model that we have here. It works quite well. It was a joy to go to those. Tax collection, the last day for paying without penalty was yesterday, so you can still pay your taxes at Village Hall, but there is, I believe, a 1% penalty if they are paid after, well, midnight yesterday. But we received, I believe, as of today, 94% of our taxes had been paid already. I know this is the first time in a few years we've been doing the collection here. Staff did fabulous. The residents in the community did fabulous with just getting their bills paid. I know it's everybody's least favorite thing to do with living in Beverly Hills, but we thank you for timely payment. That concludes my report for the evening. Happy to take questions.
Mr. Drummond, if I could, one question, Mr. Rothy, if I could. Looking at the website, I was thinking about Ms. Brady's question about, how are residents to know what's going on with the 13-mile Evergreen sidewalk project. I know that HRC helped us launch this sign up for alerts on construction projects, but looking at our website, we've got the Safe Routes to School email list. We don't yet have an email list for the TAP, right? And I assume that's because the bid hasn't been open and maybe there's not so I'm hoping that the answer is that's coming. And so residents could sign up for alerts on that. But I think the point's well taken that, for our residents, they don't always think of it in terms of these buckets, right? Well, this sidewalk's going in under this project and this sidewalk's going in under that project. So maybe we could look to beefing up the info that's available here a little bit. Yeah.
Yep, I would say absolutely that's coming. And one thing that is also coming with this one, with TAP, is we're actually going to, anybody's welcome to come. It's obviously going to be targeted to residents who live on the routes. We're actually going to have an in-person kickoff meeting hosted likely here in this room with the engineering team, with the contractors team, and just give people another opportunity to come have a dialogue, try and, address some concerns before they come. Obviously, we'll be able to address anything as it comes up, but that's just another thing that, as I kind of been here and we rolled out the online stuff, I was like, I think we need to take it even another step further, and we'll do a kickoff meeting for some of our major projects going forward, and the next one would be TAP.
I think it's a very good idea. Thank you, Mr. Murphy.
Okay, thank you. Council comments? I'm sorry, did you have another?
I have a couple questions.
My apologies, go ahead.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
So the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting, was it canceled in August and the one for September is next week? Is that right?
That's the first one.
I can't remember. I can't remember when.
No, planning for September was canceled.
The one for September, okay.
Yep, it would have been last.
Okay.
This
so
Monday?
Just
Last
in your
Monday.
report, it said August, so I thought that was kind of, I said, thanks, but was a long time ago, but okay.
I think that's a typo.
Okay, that's fine. That's great. I also came in and paid my taxes yesterday. I did it kind of just under the radar, came in a little about lunchtime, probably.
Hat and glasses?
Huh?
Hat and glasses?
No, I can't disguise myself that much. You're saying I need a wig. Wait. But it was great. Very nice. I didn't know the employee. I think it was one of our new employees, and I should have introduced myself. But I was just trying to see what it was like. Did a great job. So I'm as happy as I can be paying taxes. Thank you.
Anyone else?
No, thank you, Mr. Drummond.
So if anyone else hasn't paid their taxes yet,
Add 1%.
Tim had a really nice time doing it. I encourage you to go do it if you're in that last 6%.
I didn't pay an extra 1%, though. I got it in on time. So
you met the deadline.
They might not
That's
be
what
as
I'm
happy. The 6% that haven't paid are those that forgot, and that's happened before.
All right. At this point, we can go on to council comments. Mr. Mercer, you want to start us off?
Yes, thank you. I attended the next golf outing on Friday with Mr. Aboud at Springdale Golf Club. It was very, very well run. I think they raised a lot of money for Next. I'm sure they always wanted to raise more. It was a very, very good time, except for my golfing. Luckily, Rock golfed really well, and our other twosome did a good job. But we didn't win anything, but we had a lot of fun, and it was a nice outing. And I thank Next for setting that up, and I plan to do it again next year. So it was good. It wasn't necessarily cheap, but it was, I think, money well spent and went to a good cause. It's good to see some presence of public safety tonight. I don't think we necessarily needed it, but you never need public safety until you need public safety. So I appreciate that. I don't know if that was, something that was brought up, but I do appreciate that. The last thing, a couple of things. One, I pretty much stated where I stand as far as how I think the ordinances should be adopted. I think we should adopt 1 and 2, and I think we should do a ballot proposal for 3. That is my view. I get to do that because I'm an elected official, and I get to have an opinion. Because I have an opinion does not mean I have a conflict of interest. Every council member has to take a side. That is not a conflict of interest. Having chickens is not a conflict of interest. Somebody claiming I have a conflict of interest because I have an opinion is not. Now, it can be said that if you take the village to court and then you come up and write an ordinance, that you might have a conflict of interest. That's not up to me to decide. But I think it should go to the ballot. Also, I was very disheartened last meeting, at the end of the meeting, when I was claimed that I wasn't very diverse because I didn't want fences. Maybe people that have fences or want fences should be a little more diverse and want arborvitaes or trees or hedges. But to think that my diversity is over fences, I look at my diversity as people and what I think of other people, not a fence. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mercer. Ms. Keskemany?
Thank you, Mr. Drummond. Just a couple comments tonight. Mr. Rothi, I just want to let you know, I've heard nothing but great feedback from residents in East Beverly on the sidewalk construction, and particularly in regards to the restoration that went along with the sidewalk construction. And a lot of residents compared it to the recent work from consumers and the gas work. And so I just want to, maybe give credit to the contractor. They did a really nice job there, and I think it's like they were there the whole time. People are just walking all over the place and, not having to go on the road, so it's great. Not to make a compliment sandwich out of it, though, but I do have one thing. If we could keep in mind in the future, the start of school. It doesn't seem like it would be that big of a deal. The buses are confused every time on the start of school. You've got little kids walking for the first time, and everyone's super excited to walk their kids across Southfield Road. It was not an ideal time for that crosswalk to be as big of a mess as it was. I would hope that that crosswalk won't see as much construction. It's all done, and as I understand it, the buttons are working and the sidewalk is done and all of that. But, we have other schools, right? If there's ever work to be done around Greenfield, if there's ever work to be done around OLQM, I just really implore you. I think the first day of school, Burwood was being paved. It was trash day. The intersection at Southfield and Beverly was a mess, and the buses were super confused. So it was just, it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you've got kids on bikes and kids walking around and people parking in weird spots because they can't get out of their driveways, it was a little hairy. So I'm just going to put in a plug for us to always keep in mind. I know we are racing against a construction schedule, and trying to get as much done as we can in the summer. And I so appreciate how much work has been doing. The fact that there was a road project and a sidewalk project happening at the same time is wonderful and a testament to the work that's going on here in the village. So that's just my one ask. And I guess it's not a compliment sandwich if I don't figure out another compliment to put on the other end. But nice job running the meeting tonight, Mr. Drummond. So there's my other compliment. Thank you. That's all I got.
Mr. Truska?
Yes, first I wanted to mention that there is a Parks and Recreation meeting. This will be the last outdoor meeting at Beverly Pavilion. We don't have one in October outside, do we? Oh, never mind, second to last. But it is early this week on Thursday at 6:30 at the Beverly Park Pavilion. Also, I just wanted to highlight the slow roll stroll. Everybody got together last Tuesday on their bikes or on their son's bike because their bike had flat tires because they hadn't ridden it since last slow roll stroll, and rode around to all the different art installations. And if you haven't had an opportunity to check out the DIA Inside Out or the new sculptures that have been installed, I really encourage you to. It was a nice evening and a late night ride home, but it was nice to connect with neighbors that way and to learn about some of the art. Since we made Wenbrook an official park, I've been thinking about a lot of what that space will become, and with the conversations around Next, I would like to encourage us as we're talking about next steps there to maybe consider having some maybe satellite programming for Next in that space. It would be for people on the far reaches of the village, a much shorter drive to meet for, a small yoga class or, a bridge club or, some of the activities that they do there might also be able to be done in that building eventually. And so it's just something to think about for now and to mull over as we talk about next steps, because I think for the, the people that live in Georgetown and want to use Next, having something a little bit closer would be nicer. I really want to thank the residents that came in tonight and made comment. There have been some instances where these discussions have gotten probably a little bit heated than they needed to. And I don't think anybody, myself included, is always perfect in that. But I think that in light of some of the things that have happened nationally in the past week, that we bear in mind that that we are all neighbors and we're not always going to agree. But it's a temporary disagreement, and at some point we all have to move on. And I know that you asked for everybody's thoughts on a ballot initiative, and I know you most likely already know where I stand, but I would like for the greater community, the 12 people that might watch this later, or I don't know, it's on YouTube now, it could be 15, to state my thinking on that. We are elected here on Village Council to set policy, and it is the responsibility of a Village Council member to become knowledgeable on that subject, to research it, to visit other municipalities where it has been employed, to consider not only the wills of the majority, but also some of the rights of the minority. Somebody shouldn't be limited on what they're allowed to do on the use of enjoyment in their property just because, you know, whatever, 5,001 people don't agree with it. So it is our job to look at a subject, to find out as much information as we can on it, to talk to people both in meetings and out in the community, and to then represent not just the will of the majority, but the rights of the minority. And I know that at times that can seem difficult, and I know that at times it would be easier just to say, let's put it to a vote, and maybe it is. But then we are putting the responsibility of gathering that knowledge and doing that research on every single person in this village to judge for their neighbors. And that's exactly what we are elected to do. And I do have one other thing. Deer were brought up. I believe that we were waiting for Southfield and Farmington to make a decision. It seems as though they have, and if I remember correctly, now the DNR is booked way far out. But I would like to take on some more conversation about that and understand the timeline of what we need to act on if we want to consider it in the near future. Much like applying for grants, there's a deadline, and if we don't know what those deadlines are to get it on the discussion and work backwards, we're going to miss an opportunity for another year. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. I think you guys actually touched base on most of the things I had on my list here. I did happen to spend over the past 2 weeks, I was in the park a decent amount of times, and I was happy to see the amount of people actually stopping and admiring the pieces in the park. So that program's been great for the past couple of years and continues to seem to be very popular with the residents. So I want to thank Parks and Rec and all their effort they put into to organizing that program and keeping it moving forward. I know there was questions on the ballot tonight and where the stance is, and we hear a lot of people come to the meeting and request it to be on the ballot. I know there was an ask tonight for our particular stances. At times, I don't necessarily feel it's appropriate for us to comment on that, but I have gone on record in the past saying that I felt personally it should be on the ballot. I still feel that same way. So, you know, it was requested. That's my answer on it. And the sidewalk program, again, it's great to see everyone using the new sidewalks. I don't know if there was always people using as many sidewalks before, or it's just because they're a new sidewalk in a new place, and all of a sudden it seems like there's way more people using those sidewalks than the old sidewalks. It just might be the way I see it. But with that, that's all I had this evening. So if there was a motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Support.
all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.